so I think that there's a way in which thought can be transmitted or conveyed. And
So as a non-thinking function person necessarily, your development, your individuation in the Institute and now in the advanced training program has an individuated this understanding.
I would say so, yeah, sure.
This is an important understanding that we don't need to be dominated by the thinking function, we need to use all the functions.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that thinking, but ideas are important.
Mm-hmm.
And your kind of, your growth around that, and your ability to stand up to need, and our growth together is maybe a very important thread in the advanced development of the advanced training program.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, and so that I think is one way I've been thinking about, my, what is it like to be on the forefront?
Right on.
It's actually what it's like inside my mind, inside my gay personhood, and what that's like as a homosexual, struggling to exist and be committed to this really great endeavor of homosexual activism and the interiority of homosexual personhood. I think that's extraordinary. The idea that, in essence, that there isn't just an outer world here. It's what's important, that who we are inside is more important, and that is so elusive as a concept, I think. And I see that with the clients I work with. I'm constantly, in a way, I think I take it for granted. I have an interiority. I cultivate it. I work with it. I struggle with it. I've been doing it for years. It's almost second nature, though I really have to focus a lot, even now. But some clients I have, I keep getting surprised that there's just no concept of an interiority, and to try and how do you introduce that? How do you begin to lay the groundwork for developing that? It's a really interesting and challenging endeavor, but I think really rewarding, powerfully rewarding, especially for us gay people, because I think we could say that one of the main problems that we gay people have is that, think about it, if you have a gay-centered point of view, is imagining that, if we incorporate Mitch's idea of the double entering into childhood in the genital period of development that has to do with waking up to an orientation towards the, if you're a boy, the phallic energy that gets projected onto daddy or, some beautiful guy living near, and something gets awakened around that. And yet, there's something so enormously powerful and earth-shattering in the experience of that. When we fall in love nowadays, we know what that's like. When we're 3 years old, before we're aware, that happens. And we can't talk about that. We can't show it. We can't overtly experience that. Like if you're a little straight kid, you can play house when you're straight, and you kiss the girls, and it's all above board, and you can talk about that. But we this whole way in which we gay people, our whole inner lives are completely divorced from our daily existences, and the damage that just that does. That there's a way in which we are inside gets completely eviscerated, and we just get used to it. We exist in our lives, I think, as if we have, a sense of self inside, but it's really kind of as-ifness. It's an as-ifness, I think. And so, what does it really mean to try to cultivate that interiority, which is, I think, we could say the essence of what gay liberation should really be, is getting in touch with that essence of homosexual being and the desire for love, and being able to understand that as an experience of interiority, and that there's a liberational experience around that, opening up and experiencing life in new ways, that's creative and challenging, warrior-like.
You're describing something really beautiful and visionary, and like you said, it's not part of it's commonly understood to be reality.
Right.
How is what you're describing, how does that figure into why we're doing the advanced training because you're talking in this way about some important calibration idea.
About interiority.
And that's what we're going to be.
Absolutely, it's what the core process is all about, in a sense, cultivating that homosexual subjectivity and gay being.
Do you have a sense how it would be different from things we've done before?
Well, that's a good question, because I think that everything we do keeps evolving. It's pretty remarkable nowadays. Just talking about how this struggle with thought and thinking, how that's differentiated. It's a way in which I wouldn't have been able to conceive where we're at nowadays, 20, 30 years ago. It's pretty remarkable. So it's hard to conceptualize how what we're going to be doing is going to continue to differentiate. But I think that one way to understand it, there's a whole other thing I wanted to talk about, which is my violence, which I didn't get into in terms of how was I like to be on in front of that. Actually, that's not one thing. I think that there's a way in which one way that I would conceptualize what we're doing is moving away from a more public format. I think that had to do a lot with me too, because I was coming from, when we first were doing these groups, I think I was kind of like Don Hefner, let's do this kind of gay community scene, like Don is really into community and these extroverted scenes, where you get a lot of people in and you organize them and you're the king and you're the power.
It's interesting to name that. We tried to get a lot of people in the beginning.
Yeah,
we did.
We charged $5 for a while.
30 people.
Yeah, 30 or 40 people. A huge group of people sitting around in a circle screaming. It was intense. Yeah, but out of all those people, look who's here. There's a core group of people, it seems, that have stuck it through the years, and that way of doing it hasn't really helped, I think, in cultivating what I think we're finding increasingly requires a more interiority perspective, less like Don's extroverted, let's get everybody involved. That doesn't work because what we're trying to do is so difficult. It's so hard. It requires so much careful thought and consideration and consistency and commitment and care. Not to say that what we were trying to do back then didn't involve that, but I think that people could only get little tiny doses of what we're trying to do. So there's a way in which what we're doing, I think, is creating a tighter container around that, and yet still trying to be open. So we could say that the general or the club meetings now will be open to the public, and yet at the same time we're trying to create an idea that there's something more that people can get involved with. So there's different levels of involvement.
Structure,
right, and intensity.
And an idea about what's to amount to.
Right. What's amount to?
Which eventually, when people, if they graduate from the advanced training, something that will happen. They'll become more involved, or we're going to be moving towards getting folks more involved through the training.
Right on. Yeah, that's right. That was more elusive. That's not idea. How could people get more involved?
Right.
Anyone set up to do that? So
a big part of the evaluation in the training is to see how people are doing around taking responsibility.
Yeah, that's a whole other aspect of how things are going to be different.
Right, it's different.
Aspect. And the last intermediate group that we did, we had each other, we evaluated each other. Right? That was the first time we've done that.
Sounds interesting.
In 12, 13 years
doing
it. People, when I said we were going to look at the person opposite you, because it's a circular format, right? And we've never done this before. It came out of the blue. I thought, oh, it'd be interesting, because it's near the end of this group that we've been doing for a long, long time. And the people that have been coming, most of them have been coming for a long time, up to 10, 12 years, some people. And we'd never really talked to each other about what we think of each other in that kind of way. And it was, I think, for a lot of people, it was sitting.
Welcome to evaluation.
So each person was asked to evaluate the person sitting opposite him or her in that experience, how they saw that person over the years of the time that they'd known them. And I didn't have any criteria for evaluating them, so that was kind of interesting too.
So in a way, you're kind of introducing people to what it would be like to be in the training program.
Yeah, right.
Different ways of dealing with violence and with the shadow stuff that we haven't done before.
Absolutely, right on, yeah.
It's different. It's a very different situation.
Absolutely, and even just having the concept of evaluating in that regard is really important.
I think to really emphasize this, it's a very big shift that we're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
We don't know what it's going to be. We have some ideas. We're developing ideas. We're developing. I'll ask Mitch about that. But it'll be a big difference, I think, and just the regularity that people are going to meet is going to be more frequent.
Right.
But you're going to be more involved in too.
Yeah, we'll be more
Weekly. Not just monthly.
absolutely.
Maybe this would be a good time for me to go to Mitch. And I just want to be aware of my violence. I can feel my violence inside of me when in this role, my controlling issues and violence.
We're not really out of the woods yet. But
Why do you experience your violence right now? You're looking at me like,
not
you're taking away my powers.
I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Maybe I was looking at you for help.
Oh.
In that old-fashioned way that I used to do that.
Oh, like you're taking the focus away from me or something.
Oh right. Maybe I was feeling some other complex thing about being a bad boy, and you're going to be angry with me for doing that. Yeah, it's good to name that.
Oh.
Yeah, that was probably happening even.
It almost felt like a projected gratification. I almost felt like, oh, I should react like you're taking something away from me. How dare you?
Yeah, that's good. That was actually a hysterical moment inside of me. Even though I was trying to be aware of the violence that was happening, I was feeling something inside of me.
Well, it's not like I don't have that violence in me that wants to be the center of attention and take over and dominate. So
Right, it's good to
not
be
just
talk about that though, right? So when people interview other people, they just are violent, they just don't deal with their kids about it. So
how do you even differentiate kids? That's a whole other idea, by the way, just the idea that the Institute, as an idea of homosexual personhood and the development of an ongoing way of unfolding being as a gay person, that represents something, I think, that is so important in order to be able to differentiate out, parts of the psyche that we would want to be able to identify and partner so that our homosexual personhood can flourish. That there's something about this, like the Institute as a beacon or a set of ideas that help us evaluate each other or ourselves. How dare we say, how dare I say, hey, Doug, we're being violent right now. How dare you? How do I get off on doing that? In our normal daily lives, that's considered inappropriate or very intimate, right? To be able to confront somebody on what you really think or feel. It's like some gall. What kind of gall do you have to say that I should be a better person?
Right.
That I could develop my potentials. How dare you?
Right, that's this big idea that we're saying is actually the next step in being a psychological being. We have these horrible violent shadows.
Yeah.
We're going to know about them.
Yeah.
We don't help each other.
Right, and within a gay context,
In a gay context.
gay-centered psychological context,
Right.
a beacon of Uranian Psychoanalytic
Absolutely.
thought.
And how all these ideas are actually these ways of thinking about it to help us do that.
Yeah, right.
Like you and I just modeled what you called me on my violence, and then you named your own narcissism. And that took a lot of active imagination, a lot of contemporary Uranian psychoanalysis to do. Okay, so now I am trying to go 10 minutes. I was feeling some big inferiority about who am I to be